A very important topic that comes in the teachings of prophecy. It's one that you don't often hear that much about unless you're in those circles that do deal with that. I think there's a few more people now starting to realise what's going on and so looking into it. And so maybe 10, 15 years ago, it would have been very difficult to find anything regarding this topic. Now, what I'm sharing tonight, obviously you can see from the slide, it's the coming New World Order, and this is part 1. So it's going to be a 2-part, and even if it was 10, 15 parts, we would never cover the whole thing. So one of the difficulties with a topic like this is knowing what to say and what not to say. Now, what I thought would be very helpful for us would be if I just give you kind of a basic introduction to the topic, looking a little bit at the recent history of this topic, and that will kind of set the stage for what we're going to deal with in session 2, which will be quite, I won't say in depth, but it'll be quite a lot of information that will kind of make sense. If I'd have just gone straight into that, then a lot of it wouldn't have made sense at all. So this is just like an introduction to the whole topic. And the world today is in the clutches of a deep and subtle conspiracy. It is a conspiracy that is surging ahead, expecting to reach its ultimate fulfillment in the near future. But what is a conspiracy? Well, it's a secret plan by a group to do something unlawful or harmful. That is the online dictionary definition of conspiracy. I know that because I looked it up before this evening. However, we must always go to our final authority in all matters of faith and practice. I am, of course, referring to the Bible. So, conspiracies in the Bible. What does the Bible have to say about conspiracies? Well, in the New Testament, the word conspiracy is the Greek word sunamosia. Now, I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that right, but it's sunamosia. And it is only used one time in the New Testament, and that is in Acts 23, verse 13. It's used 9 other times in the Old Testament. And if you're thinking, well, what's Acts 23, 13? And I'll just read it. It says, and there were more than 40 which made this conspiracy. Now, obviously, the context is that there were people, the Jews, that were wanting to get hold of Paul and kill him, basically, if you read the account there in Acts 23. The Jews had wanted to get hold of Paul, and so they created this conspiracy how to devise a plan to get him and kill him, basically. Now, one Greek lexicon defines synomosia as a secret agreement between 2 or more people to perform an unlawful act, often performed with oaths. So throughout this message, then, when I mention conspiracy, I am using the term with that definition in mind. The conspiracy itself is like an octopus with many tentacles reaching out to ensnare everything within its grasp. It reaches into every part of society, into all nations. It uses all circumstances or creates circumstances. It manipulates and schemes to bring about its aim, which is a one world government led by an all-powerful coterie or inner circle, if you will, and headed by one man to whom every individual on the earth must give allegiance and even worship. The Bible calls this one man the Antichrist. An elite clique of individuals, intellectuals, bankers, politicians, influential leaders and radicals has formulated the plans over a long period of time, in fact, over centuries. This clique has involved many people in the outworking of the worldwide conspiracy. Many collaborators are stooges, paid servants, or petty power seekers. Others are sincere ideologists who believe that the plans so carefully laid down present the best solution to world problems. And so they lend support to the arch enemies and the arch conspirators. Then, of course, there are millions who, like pawns in a chess game, are being used unwittingly as instruments to fulfill various aspects of the plans and to help bring about the fulfillment of this ultimate grand design. The number of people in the clique of insiders is not known. There must now be thousands. The innermost group of conspirators may be a handful. It is likely impossible to discover the full details because the whole thing is conspiracy and thus extremely secretive. Although, as I will demonstrate in part 2, these globalists, or one-worlders as I call them, are becoming so bold that they are now not even trying to hide what they are doing. In many cases, they openly say and show what their plan is. I will be sharing why I think this is in the next session. So then, it's the Luciferian conspiracy, and I want to show you this through the Luciferian conspiracy diagram, which will help explain a little bit of what it is. This is from one of the guys. Oops, sorry, go back. You can see how it works. You've got the elite at the top, and then you've got the business sector on finance here, and secret societies over the other side, and then that filters down to politics, to military intelligence, and then even religion. I mean, if you look at some of the WCC, I'm sure many of you know what that is, and then you've got the policy and influence. This is how the pyramid works, if you like. It starts at the top. The Luciferian, these are people that are Satanists, and out Satanists, hate God, hate his people, and are planning to bring in a world government. They want to rule the world. And so you have all these different various peoples coming together and trying to work at it. So it's very difficult to fully understand how it all works together. Enough is now known, however, to discern the program at work around the world and through its many tentacles. One thing is very clear. The whole conspiracy is basically the work of one person, to whom the Bible calls Satan. He is the brains, if you will, behind the bankers, the politicians, the leaders, and all their subordinates. Some people will scoff at this idea that I'm putting forth. They will ridicule the allegation that there is such a worldwide conspiracy. Some will say it's impossible. Others will claim it's imagination. It's the foil tin hat brigade. They'll say, oh, it's conspiracy theorists. That's all you are, a conspiracy theorist. Well, my reply to that is, what many people don't know, is that the term conspiracy theorist was introduced and developed by the CIA. And it was, I forget the date now, we've got all the details, I could get you the date. And what they did is they put that out to ridicule those, and made it sound so ridiculous that those that thought that this wasn't happening, those that were looking and seeing what the government was doing. So they did that, they put that term out so that people could say that. And so people kind of shy away from that. Oh, I don't want to be put in that camp, of conspiracy theory. So it was a deliberate act by the CIA to make something seem ridiculous, when in fact the truth is what's happening. So they put that term out. So when people use that term, I often ask them, do you know where it come from? And often they don't. And then I tell them, well, that's where it came from. The CIA put that out to try and deflect from the real things that were going on. However, I will be using the Bible as our final authority in all matters of faith and practice, and I'll be quoting the Bible prophecies that detail this ultimate conspiracy in unmistakable language. In other words, it will not be some vague, mystical, esoteric, Gnostic understanding reserved for the enlightened few. It will be the plain meaning and sense of the text. As I said previously, if the plain sense makes perfect sense, seek no other sense, or you will end up with nonsense. The Bible is a prophetic book, and hundreds of Bible prophecies have been fulfilled throughout the centuries. Scores of prophecies are also being fulfilled before our eyes at this very moment, while a whole range of detailed prophecies are related to the future. World events today show the stage is being set, and plans are rapidly bringing about the fulfillment of Bible prophecy. In the Bible, this conspiracy is referred to as the mystery of iniquity, or the mystery of lawlessness. It will be brought to its climax by an infamous man referred to in the Bible as the man of lawlessness and the man of sin. The prophecy says, "Let no man deceive you by any means, for that day shall not come, except there come a falling falling away first, and the man of sin be revealed, the son of perdition. For the mystery of iniquity doth already work. Only he who now letteth will let until he be taken out of the way. And then shall that wicked be revealed, whom the Lord will consume with the spirit of his mouth, and shall destroy with the brightness of his coming. That's recorded, as you see, in 2 Thessalonians 2, verses 3, verse 7 and verse 8. This man has many other titles, including Antichrist, Serpent of old, Wicked One, etc., etc. The climax of the lawlessness will come at the end of this age, when after 3.5 years of the bestial reign, the Lord Jesus Christ will destroy the conspirators and the conspiracy itself. The 3.5 years are the midpoint of the 7-year tribulation period. It is at that point that Antichrist claims that he is God and demands to be worshipped. So that's when he's at his pinnacle of power and reign. I am convinced that this will take place in my lifetime. I don't expect to be here for it, but I expect it to happen in my lifetime. I expect to be watching it from the heavens, if you like. Now, I've been interested in this subject for many years. I've had the privilege of being able to travel the length and the breadth of this country with Dr. Don Stanton, as he has sought to alert people of the ever-developing New World Order. And it is partly due to Don, and after reading his books and listening to many of his teachings on this subject, that I felt compelled to pick up the baton, if you will, and also sound the alarm. A lot of what I'm sharing is taken from these books by Don Stanton. This one here, Mystery 666, it's a very old book, so Don was kind of ahead of his time in many ways. And a lot of what I'll be sharing is taken from that. And then again, the other one on the far side, again, about the New World Order, not as much in depth, but it's got a lot of information and some little bit up to date. Now, I used to say we carry these books. I think we've still got one or two, but we used to distribute them all over. Myself and Brenda had the privilege of being the representatives of the ministry called Maranatha Revival Crusade. And we were the European and UK reps, and we had quite a lot of readers. We had some European readers as well, and they would sometimes, Don would send out a book from Australia, and if they wanted extra copies, they would contact us. And so we've got a stack, lots of Don's books. The ministry, sadly, due to age, is no longer functioning as it was, and so we're really looking to just pass on what stock we've got to help and benefit others. So Don Stanton was really the man that got me involved in this subject, that got me thinking about it. For many years now, I've done my own research actually on this topic, and it is abundantly evident to me that Don was right. I've had the privilege of finding other biblically sound teachers and preaching saying the same things. So it's not just like one man's idea, one or two more are coming on board. And particularly this guy's books here, J.B. Hickson. I've just come across this guy probably in the last 12, 18 months. And he's got these three books. I ordered them before, it was after we'd actually started these prophecy evenings. I found that he'd done these books and I ordered them. And so I'm going through the first one slowly, because obviously there's all this to prepare. I gave Dave, my friend Dave, that's not here this evening, I gave him them to read, and I think he spent most day and night just reading them, and he's read them. But there's a lot of stuff in there that's very relevant to the topic. So I'd highly recommend, again, you look at J.B. Hickson books. Again, you can get him on YouTube as well. Now, when I first came across this teaching through Don Stanton, it was like finding the missing link to understanding Bible prophecy, if I can put it that way. What do I mean? Well, as believers, it's sometimes baffling and can be troubling to see so much evil in the world and ask the question, why? Why is everything the way it is? Well, it is only after learning what the Bible taught on this issue that I realised that when I thought that the world was falling apart, it's actually falling into place exactly as the Bible describes. So it's only as you see and understand what the Bible says about the climax of the ages that it all begins to make sense. In other words, it's not some secret teaching. It's been in the Bible all along. It's just that we never really get exposed to this kind of teaching. I never heard anything about this when I was growing up as a Christian for the first 20 years of being a Christian. And it's not the kind of topic that you would bring on a Sunday morning anyway, as a kind of devotional. But it is, we need to know the whole counsel of God. You know, we can't shy away some things. So there's not a lot of churches, even now as I speak, there'll be very few churches that would even go anywhere near this topic or subject. So you're privileged in a way. So I want to share then a short passage of scripture with that in mind, that I trust will help and explain what I'm saying. And it is in 1 John chapter 2, verses 15 to 17. It says, "Love not the world, neither the things that are in the world. If any man love the world, the love of the Father is not in him. For all that is in the world, the lust of the flesh, the lust of the eyes, and the pride of life, is not of the Father, but it is of the world. And the world passeth away, and the lust thereof. But he that doeth the will of God abideth forever." You see, we need to keep this thought in mind, this mindset we need to adopt, that we're not of this world. We're from a different world, if you like. We've been born again, and we've been transferred from the kingdom of darkness into the kingdom of light. And we're looking for a new home that is in the heavens. And so this is not our home. We're actually, believe it or not, we're on enemy turf here. And that's what the book of Ephesians, particularly chapter 6, is all about. That's why it talks about putting on the armour of God. And so we're on enemy territory, and this is not our home. Our home is in the heavens with God. So we're here to do a job. And what is that job? It's to do the will of the Father. And that is to be ambassadors, to be witnesses for him. And so we need to always have that mindset and keep that at the forefront of our mind when we're dealing with anything regarding the world and what's going on. And that is the reason why I'm sharing this message with you this evening. Now, we may not be able to hinder the rapid progress of the globalist plan, but it is essential to save ourselves and as many others as possible from the consummation of the mystery of lawlessness before it is too late. Millions of people will be deceived and ensnared by this conspiracy and finally destroyed by it. That is prophesied. It will happen. Nothing can stop it. It will take place in the final 7 years of this age. When I say that, that does not mean things will not get hard now. We're seeing things, the shadows, if you like, of what will happen in the tribulation. It's an awful period of time that we don't want to, and we won't be as a church will be spared that. But that does not mean that we won't have difficulties now. And as things get closer to that time, things don't just happen in a vacuum. There is always something that starts something off, and that's what this is doing. It's setting the stage for when the Antichrist comes on the scene. So we need to be very aware of that. And as I continue then to track this topic, as I look around and see and hear what is happening, I can see just about everything is now being geared to bring in a one world government, a one world monetary system, a one world leader, and a one world religion, etc., etc. The number of agencies and institutional organisations to look into and finally control every area of world life are multiplying rapidly. All this is not an accident. It is planned. It's a conspiracy. Remember, a conspiracy is a secret agreement between two or more to perform an unlawful act, often performed with oaths. Of necessity, it is a conspiracy, for the great mass of educated people would not tolerate the changes that are being made if the plan were open. People will not stand by if they see their personal rights being removed, or their countries surrendering their sovereignties to a supra-world government. However, that being said, the whole plan is camouflaged, and the people are being conditioned through propaganda and by crisis so that they will soon feel there is no alternative to accepting a one-world dictatorship. In everything I will be saying and showing in this presentation and in part 2, please know that I do not want to be critical of sincere efforts to solve world problems. The nations, in fact, should pull together and together seek solutions to the crises that face us. All systems need reform, improvement, and constant updating to ensure efficiency for the times. Therefore, I do not criticise well-intentioned men and women who are working to improve world conditions. The thesis, or the premise, which I believe fully relates to the Bible prophecies for the end times, is that evil minds are working behind the scenes and are using the forces of finance, legislation, politics, and technology to bring about a total world dictatorship. It is not necessarily world organisations that are wrong, but the evil power that often controls them. And it's that power that I'm seeking to better explain, or to better say, it's that power that I'm seeking to expose. The Bible has not revealed these things to scare us, but to prepare us. And that's the point we need to remember. These aren't here to frighten us. These are here to prepare us. God says, look, I'll show you what's going to happen, so you'll be prepared. Therefore, I am convinced that if you begin to understand the things that I will be seeking to reveal to you, then you will be better prepared to equip yourself, your family, your loved ones, and those you meet to see what is happening. You will be able to help them understand why things are the way they are. So we're going to look then at the conspiracy and the ambition to rule. I want to use this first session to look at the recent history of the developments to bring about a new world order. That will help us better understand what I will be sharing in the next session. Before I do, I want to share a quote from one of these globalists that I first heard about 20 years ago. It was in one of Don Stanton's books. And here is the quote. It says, "We do not want another committee. We have too many already. What we want is a man of sufficient stature to hold the allegiance of the people and to lift us out of the economic morass into which we are sinking. Send us such a man, and be he God or devil, we will receive him." That was a speech, I believe it was in 1950 something, by Henry Spack, Paul Henry Spack. He was the first president of the UN General Assembly, the first president of the European Parliament, and the one-time Secretary General of NATO. So these are high-ranking officials that are coming out with this stuff. Conspiracies to rule the world have always existed, from time of Nimrod, who built the Tower of Babel at Babylon, to those who build skyscrapers in New York and Tokyo today. The history of the pharaohs, of the Caesars, of the caliphs, the rajas, the kings, the emperors and empire is filled with plots and conspiracies, attempts to conquer and to rule men and nations. Certain leaders have been more successful than others in their goals, but from time immemorial, there have been certain individuals possessed with an uncanny ambition to rule the world. Nebuchadnezzar, for example, and Darius, Alexander, Julius Caesar, Mussolini, Stalin, and Adolf Hitler are just some of the more prominent men who have attempted to do so. Conspiracy is as old as the devil. In the 1st century AD, Paul tells us the mystery of lawlessness was already at work in 2 Thessalonians 2:7, which we read earlier. That mystery, no doubt, was a secret plan of evil. A conspiracy, although existing in that century, is linked to the conspiracy of the last days, which will bring Antichrist into world power. Satan himself is the architect of the first and the greatest conspiracy of all time. It is otherwise known as the Luciferian conspiracy. King David describes the earthly element of this conspiracy in Psalm chapter 2 and verses 1 to 4. "Why do the heathens rage, and the people imagine a vain thing? The kings of the earth set themselves, and the rulers take counsel together against the Lord and against his anointed, saying, Let us break their bands asunder, and cast away their cords from us. He that sitteth in the heavens shall laugh, the Lord shall have them in derision." See, world leaders have been conspiring together for centuries to overthrow God and his anointed, referring, of course, to Jesus Christ. The working of this mystery can be traced down through history, through the dark and Middle Ages to the present time, and this itself could be a great study. And when I say great, I mean great as in volume, mountains of evidence. I want to share then some of the background and recent workings of the Old Age conspiracy. We begin with the Illuminati. I'm sure you've heard the term. And the plot then in more recent times can be traced back to the 1st of May 1776, when a secret society called the Order of the Illuminati was founded by a diabolical man named Adam Weishaupt. He was a professor of canon law in Bavaria and was credited as being the profoundest conspirator that has ever existed. He was also called a human devil. Weishaupt was born on February the 6th, 1748. He received his early training under the Jesuits, but as a rebellious youth, he turned to radical occult philosophy. In 1771, Weishaupt came into contact with a merchant named Colmer, who had spent many years in Egypt. Colmer had returned to Europe in search of converts to a secret doctrine founded on Manichaeism, which he had learnt in the East. Weishaupt was initiated into the mysteries of this occult philosophy and then spent the next 5 years devising a plan to use its mysteries as a basis for a revolutionary society whose aim would be to control the world. The word Illuminati was used in the 15th century in Italy and Spain, referring to people with supernatural powers. The word can be traced back to the Manichaeans also. This occult religion was in fact an important link in the mystery of iniquity chain through the Dark and Middle Ages. The religion was founded by a man named Mani, who was born near Baghdad in the 3rd century AD. As well as claiming to be the apostle of Jesus Christ and also the promised Paraclete, that's a reference to the Holy Spirit, Mani stated that Buddha, Zoroaster, Hermes and Plato were all his predecessors. Mani was expelled from Persia, which we know is modern-day Iran, at one time and labelled by the Zoroastrians as a heretic. He travelled to India and came into contact with Buddhism. His teachings were a synthesis of Persian religions, Buddhism, heretical Christianity and occultism. After the martyrdom of Mani, his religion spread rapidly all over the Roman Empire and Asia, but survived particularly in Chinese Turkestan, Persia, Syria and Egypt. It was this background that Weishaupt deeply studied, as well as the history of secret societies and movements from ancient times. There were secret societies in China, greater and lesser mysteries of ancient Greece, ancient Egypt, and the Eleusinian mysteries, which all had an influence on the Illuminati order, which Weishaupt and like-minded allies launched in 1776. Before Weishaupt's organisation was formed, there were many other secret societies, such as the German Illuminists and the French Martinists, or French Illumines. Under the guidance of the latter sect, a wave of occultism swept over France, and lodges everywhere became centres of instruction on the Kabbalah, magic, divination, alchemy, and theosophy. Masonic rites degenerated into ceremonies for the invoking of spirits. Women were now admitted to these assemblies and screamed, fainted, and fell into convulsions, and lent themselves to experiments of the most horrible kind. Weishaupt, the profoundest conspirator, capitalised on this existing and rivaling societies and succeeded in consolidating control over many of them. From the very beginning, he conspired to capture the Freemasons. In 1777, Adam Weishaupt became a member of the Freemasons, which itself was and still is an extremely secret society. The Illuminati infiltration of the Masonic lodges was so thorough that for many years the European lodges were filled with illumination. The Illuminati became an order of the Freemasons, and the Freemasons became an order of the Illuminati. So they were both linked. Being master of intrigue, the Illuminati have always used front organisations to spread certain ideas while covering up the real goal. The goals of the Illuminati are summed up in 6 points. Firstly, number 1, the abolition of monarchy and ordered government. The abolition of private property. The abolition of inheritance. Number 4, the abolition of patriotism. Number 5, the abolition of the family. i.e. of marriage and all morality, and the institution of communal education of children. And number 6, abolition of religion, the replacement of the worship of God by the worship of reason and rationalism. The Illuminati use a symbol of the all-seeing eye, and as have the Freemasons and other groups such as the Rosicrucians. In fact, all three are allied. The eye originated in Egypt. It is the eye of Horus, the hawk-headed god of light. Horus is another name for the counterfeit light, the counterfeit Messiah, which is the Antichrist, and that's what Antichrist means. It's a counterfeit Christ. The Illuminati was made up of 8 layers or rings within rings. At the centre of the order was Weishaupt himself, represented by the eye. In fact, as Rex, the name at the centre, or king of the order, he was the embodiment of satanic power. Weishaupt's code name was Spartacus. Around Rex was a small core of the most trusted initiates, the Magus, as they were called, then another 6 progressive rings or layers or members. Members are enlisted and brought into the order as novices. These people were illuminated with humanitarian ideas and conditioned to embrace the higher mysteries. As they progressed, they were promoted to higher levels, but only as they proved satisfactory and reached the inner circles were they allowed to see the real goal of world rulership. Only a handful of most trusted initiates of the innermost circles knew that Weishaupt was the founder and the head of the society. The society had immense success in attracting prominent men throughout Europe and even in America. And so we go to the French Revolution. The Illuminati played a leading role in the French Revolution of 1789 to 1794, using the Jacobins Club as a front. This club had a membership of 1,300, composed of some of the most influential men in France. They called for a new world order and universal republic. The reign of terror was led by a man, Robespierre, an Illuminatus, who had framed a declaration of the rights of man. He himself lost his head to a guillotine. But another Illuminatus, Babeuf, became a leader. He published a document called the Manifesto of the Equals, and later the Analysis of the Doctrine of Babeuf. He advocated the abolition of private property and equitable distribution of the fruits of the earth. This document became the Bible for the communist movement. In 1830, Adam Weishaupt died, but the society continued to be led by the Invisible 40, which was by then operating out of Italy. The society perfected the strategy of operating through 2 opposing parties at the same time. On the one hand, they would use a radical action party, and on the other hand, an intellectual party. Only a few key leaders of such parties knew of the higher powers above them. We now go to the Communist League. In 1843, a young man named Karl Marx became involved in a secret society known as the League of the Just. In 1847, a new Illuminati front called the Communist League was formed, which commissioned Marx to write the Communist Manifesto. This Marx completed with the aid of and under the supervision of his friend Friedrich Engels, a capitalist of substantial wealth. There is evidence, however, that Marx was not at all an atheist, but a Satanist. In 1859, the Illuminati conspirators met with nihilist and atheistic and subversive organizations in New York. They united and formed an organization known as International Communism. Henceforth, communism was to be the Illuminati front to cause wars, riots, revolutions, and complete demoralization of society, the destruction of Christianity, the overthrow of all existing governments, the confiscation of all privately owned property and business, the disruption of national unity by inciting minority groups to violence, riot and guerrilla warfare, and the establishment of a one-world government to destroy the sovereignty of nations and enslave mankind. These objectives were to be realised through the gradual infiltration and ultimate control of all schools, colleges, universities, government agencies and bureaus and news media. And in the next session, I'll be showing you how far they've got with all that. They have succeeded in the realisation of their Luciferian plot in part. However, the plot is about to get thicker, much thicker. And then we have now the Round Table. Another tentacle of the conspiracy can be traced back to about 1870, when an English professor, John Ruskin, taught that some men were superior to others, and that one superior man should rule the world. His teachings were embraced by a wealthy man named Cecil Rhodes, who devoted his fortune gained through gold and diamonds in South Africa to propagating his lifelong dream of a new world order and a world government. He formed a secret society in 1891, which later became known as the Round Table Group. In his last will, Rhodes established the famous Rhodes Scholarships, through which young people from all over the world would receive higher education and the indoctrination of one-worldism. Like the Illuminati, the Round Table had an inner core, with various circles of associates built around it. It became international and formed branches and associations and societies in many nations. International bankers were involved in the society from the beginning. Lord Rothschild of England, a leading member of the powerful international house of Rothschild. He was the financier of the Rhodes mining monopoly in South Africa, and Rhodesia was named after Cecil Rhodes, the country of Rhodesia. Rothschild became the trustee of the Rhodes fortune and an inner initiate of the secret society, as did Lord Rosebery, Rothschild's son-in-law. After Rhodes' death, one of his close associates, Lord Alfred Milner, who was another powerful British banker, became the leader of the society. Now, I've just given a brief history of the recent workings of a conspiracy that is getting closer to its goal of a new world order. I have given that brief history and insight because what I will be sharing in part 2 is so shocking that if you didn't have this background, then you probably wouldn't believe a word that I will be saying in the next session. You might even be thinking that now, I don't know. Now, I don't want to leave this message like that. I realise that for some, this may sound all doom and gloom. Therefore, I want to finish and remind you that as believers, we have the good news. So let us remind ourselves of the good news. And in Titus chapter 2, verses 11 to 15, it says, For the grace of God that bringeth salvation has appeared to all men and women, that's to you and me, teaching us that denying ungodliness and worldly lusts, we should live soberly, righteously, and godly in this present age, looking for that blessed hope and the glorious appearing of the great God and our Saviour Jesus Christ, who gave himself for us that he might redeem us from all iniquity and purify himself a peculiar people, zealous of good works. These things speak, exhort, rebuke with all authority. Let no man despise you. That's our calling. We're here to expose and to help people to see why things are the way they are and that there is an answer to all their problems. Jesus said, I am the life. And we need to go to Jesus for life. He is the way. He said, I am the way, the life, and the truth. And you will only find the way, the life, and the truth when you come to Jesus and accept him as Lord and Saviour. We have all, I trust that in this room, we've all accepted that. So we're not down, we're not seeing things and thinking, oh, did God think about that? God is omniscient, he's omnipresent, he's omnipotent, all-powerful. Satan, remember, Satan is not the victor. Satan is not even gaining. He's not even winning. Satan has been defeated. completely defeated. He was defeated at the cross of Calvary. All that's happening now, all that's he working out, is that God does things in an orderly manner. And we're his people. We're called an army, as it were, of God's people. And all we're doing is we're seeking to help those that don't know. Somebody shared the good news with me. Somebody shared the good news with you. And that's all we're to do, pass on that good news. And we trust that somebody will help, will listen to what we're saying. But all we can do is mostly point them to this. And even with the messages like this, don't take my word for it. I've just tried to share one or two people. J.B. Hickson, he's done marvellous research on this. Don Stanton, we still have his books. There are others out there. I could list a number of people that you could go to on the internet for free and find out and check all this out. I mean, that's one of the things that I'm sure I've drilled into you in these meetings. Don't just accept what I'm saying. Don't just accept what James is saying or what anyone else says from here. Go to the Bible and check it out. And I can guarantee you that one day, and I believe it's soon, one day we'll be caught up to glory and we'll stand before Christ, and we all want to hear those words, "Well done, good and faithful servant. Enter now into the joy of your Lord." And that's why we're here. We're wanting to know what God's will is. What is our plan, and what is God's plan and purpose for Baildon, for here? And once we get that and just keep doing it, we're not to go out and knock on everybody's door and worry them. We're just to see what God says. Because whatever God's plan is, I want to be in it. So I want you to be prepared. I think the next time I'm speaking is the 23rd of June, if I think it right off the top of my head. So this is all being preparation for the main stuff and all the up-to-date stuff. And there are some shocking things, because we're well on our way to a one world government led by a one world leader. I don't have to tell you, I'm sure you're aware. If you're aware of anything that's going on in the world, you should be aware of what's happening. And I'll be mentioning the WEF, the World Economic Forum, Klaus Schwab, Yuval Noah Harari, some very wicked people out there. And as I say, I'll mention it in the next time, but they're no more, they're not hiding it anymore. They're absolutely broadcasting what they're doing. And we need to be in tune with what's happening so that we can help others. So I hope that this has been informative. And we'll have a 5-minute break now to stretch your legs, have a